Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded, an outreach of Benedictus Psychological Services. Interested in behavioral health from a Catholic Christian perspective? Check out benedictuspsych.com. I'm glad to be with you today. I've been away for a couple of weeks. As you probably remember, here at Gospel Minded, we spend a few moments each week talking about psychology, emotions, behavioral health, all of these things. And we reflect on how these important topics are related to the Sunday Gospel reading each week. Now, this isn't a substitute for actually getting yourself to Mass or participating in counseling, therapy, spiritual direction, if you're involved in those practices. But like we have seen and know so well, things of our mind and our psychology so often go beautifully hand in hand with our spirituality. If this is your first time checking out this channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Either way, I hope that you'll subscribe to this channel and like this video. So like I mentioned, I've been away for a few weeks traveling with family, seeing friends. It was great, and I've been away from the gospel-minded videos now for a few weeks, but boy, am I glad to be with you again today, and glad that the gospel today is from St. Luke, because it really connects to some things that I've been observing really for a long time as a psychologist and therapist, but I've really been noticing it a lot lately. So the gospel is from Luke chapter 10, and it starts with verse 25. And this is what it says. It says, "There was a scholar of the law who stood up to test Jesus and said, 'Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?' Jesus said to him, 'What is written in the law? How do you read it?' He said in reply, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' He replied to him, 'You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live.'" And it goes on, but I think that right there is plenty for me to talk about what I wanted to bring up today. First of all, a very rich text and just filled with lots to be pondered, certainly from a spiritual perspective. But psychologically speaking, there is a lot here to think through, and namely this. So as a therapist, I notice when people come to my office, a lot of times they're dealing with one of three issues. It's issues related to the way they're thinking. So perhaps they've got rigid thinking or unhelpful, negative cognitions. There's some kind of issue with the way they're thinking about their life, their world, whatever. So maybe there's a thinking problem. Maybe there is an emotion problem and some emotional dysregulation. And that can look a lot of different ways, like depressive disorder, significant anxiety, or like an anxiety disorder. But maybe people have got issues related to their emotions. And then the other one is behaviors, things that we do, the things that we choose to not do. These can cause people a lot of problems in their ability to really function optimally and flourish. And so just generally speaking, when I'm working with folks, it tends to be one of these three things. Either there's an issue with their thought process, an issue with their emotions and their emotional stability and emotional regulation, maybe an issue with their behaviors, or maybe it's some combination of all three of these things. And again, I'm just speaking generally here, but often these are the kinds of things that I notice. But think about this. So this guy here today, scholar of the law, tries to test Jesus and says, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus says, "Well, what does the law say? You've got it in front of you. You have the answer. You're a scholar of the law. What does it say?" It says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind, with all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus says to him, "You've answered correctly. Do this and you will live." So why am I bringing this up? Because a lot of times people will come to a session of therapy, or they'll be looking at the big picture of their life, and they'll be like, why can't I get traction with things? Why isn't life looking the way that I want it to? And so often when they come to therapy, they start talking about it, verbalizing it out loud, and suddenly it's like some dots start to get connected, almost as if like they have the answer in front of them. And now as they talk it through, it's like, aha, I guess I've got the answer. Now it's a matter of exercising a little bit of willpower, uh, exercising some positive and helpful behaviors, and taking the steps necessary or forward to get what they really want. So a couple examples that I've noticed a lot recently. First of all, I work with quite a few young people, and a lot of these young folks want to see themselves get into a better job. They want to advance their career and give themselves more opportunities. And naturally, thinking about the future can be a little bit stressful. And so I've had a couple different folks, young people, come in kind of verbalizing in therapy the stressors of their current job, their current life situation. And they're like, well, I'd like to go to school. I want to get a different career lined up for me in the future. And it's almost like they're saying, what do I have to do this? Well, you have the answer. You know what you have to do. You have to get yourself into school. You have to study. You have to get good grades. You have to persevere. I mean, as they start to talk about this, it's almost like, oh yeah, right. Okay, so X, Y, and Z. If I put these things into place, I can have a better shot at getting what I want to get out of this, or getting what I want to get out of this part of my life. So that's an example, and I've seen that happen a lot in just the last few months, especially as we get closer to the fall and academic years are starting back up again before too long. Another one, and I've seen this one a ton, it's people having problems accomplishing things or noticing problems in their life because of their connection to their phone. And I've talked before about how problematic our phones have become and can become. I mean, they're tools that can be exceptionally useful and they can help us in so many ways, but they can also cause a lot of problems. And a lot of times when folks are in my office talking about things related to the phone, they're talking about it because it's a problem. And I've seen it so many times, like, well, Doc, I've spent 7 hours on average this week on my phone. Okay, well, what are you doing this weekend? Not much. I'm going to be chilling in my room, looking at TikTok, looking at Instagram, looking at YouTube. It's like, wow, is that really what you want to see your weekend look like? And then they can't figure out like why they're not establishing connections with friends, or why they are not feeling satisfied with life. And so when they come and they start to talk about this stuff, and they start to verbalize out loud, like, yeah, I want to have a more robust friend group. I want to be doing more things to explore this area and get out some on the weekends. And it's almost comical, but as a therapist, I try to leave a sort of trail of breadcrumbs in my questions, and they start to connect these dots, and they're like, wow, okay, so maybe I need to put the phone down and actually like get out of my room, or call up my friend, or use your phone to text your friend and say, hey, let's meet over here at 6 o'clock and hang out. But it's like the answer is there. We know the answer. And these are just a couple examples, but so often, like what's being highlighted here in the gospel, what you're looking to get out of life, what you're wanting to see happen, sometimes it's not that simple, but a lot of times we have the answers. We've got everything within our grasp. And I don't want to oversimplify it and make it seem like it's just that easy. But I think all too often we make things harder than they need to be, either in our mind, or or because we're not feeling some kind of way about it, or perhaps because we just lack the drive and haven't mustered up enough motivation to actually put into place those behaviors that we know are going to lead us to a better place and help us. That gospel reading today connects to this first reading that we had from the book of Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy, it starts off here in chapter 30. It says, Moses said to the people, if only you would heed the voice of the Lord your God and keep his commandments and statutes that are written in this book of the law, when you return to the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. For this command that I enjoin on you today is not too mysterious and remote for you. It is not up in the sky that you should say, who will go up in the sky to get it for us and tell us of it that we may carry it out? I think with a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, it's not that mysterious. There aren't huge mysteries to some of these things. How are we thinking about stuff? How are we feeling about stuff? What are we doing or what are we not doing that makes things ultimately more helpful or less helpful? Again, it's not always that simple, but all too often we're making it a lot more complicated and hard than it actually is. So, my invitation to you this week is to spend a little bit of time reflecting on where you're at right now. What are some goals you have? What are some things you want to see happen with your life? And how are you going to get there? Is it really that lofty a thing that's impossible to have this happen? Do you have some of those pieces in place? Are they within your grasp? A lot of times, when we really think about it, yes, they are. And it's a matter then of making our behaviors map up with our thought process about it to bring it to fruition through grace. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope that you'll keep coming back now. I'm plugged in now for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year, and looking forward to being back with you next time on Gospel Minded. Between now and then, let's keep one another in prayer, and I'll see you next time. I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. This is Gospel Minded. Take care.